This is our Bernina L450 overlocker, and here's a quick start guide on how to thread your machine. This applies to all Bernina L4 overlockers. The first thing you want to do is make sure that your needles are in the correct position for threading. The needle should be in the uppermost position. You can rotate the hand wheel towards you to raise the needles. You'll also want to be sure that the presser foot is raised so that your thread will pass through the tension discs correctly. Remove the cutoff bin from the machine by rotating it outward towards you from the top. Then open the front cover by sliding it to the right and tilting it down. You'll also find your tools stored inside the front cover here, which will come in handy for threading. Let's start by placing our spools of thread in place onto the machine. We'll start by threading the third spool into the machine. We'll take the loose end of the third spool and pass it through the third space on our thread tree. The thread will be clipped into the third silver metal guide at the top of the machine and then directly down through the slot next to the tension dial. We will clip the thread into the guides labeled with a blue dot. The first one is on the right side. Then the next two guides are at the bottom, next to each other. You will then pass the thread through the larger wire guide next to the upper looper and then finally threaded through the eye of the upper looper. Using a pair of tweezers is the easiest way to get the thread through the eye of the looper. Once it's threaded through, you can pull the thread to the back of the machine and tuck it under the foot out of the way. Now for our next spool, we'll pass the fourth thread through the fourth thread tree guide, silver guide and tension disc at the top of the machine exactly the same as the third thread. Press the latch labeled with a red arrow on the left side of the machine, which will assist with this next step. Thread the fourth thread through the guides labeled with a red dot. One on the right side, two towards the bottom which also contains our previous thread, and one more guide slightly further to the left. You will then pass the thread around the small metal hook that was exposed by pressing the red arrow latch previously. Once the thread is secured on the hook, flick the latch back up. You will then use tweezers to thread the fourth thread into the eye of the lower looper. Tuck the thread underneath out towards the back of the machine under the foot to keep it out of the way. Now it's time to thread the right needle with the second spool of thread. Pass the thread down from the tension disc, then immediately left, up and around the passage marked with the green dot as shown. The right needle thread will then pass through the upper metal guides here and here, making sure that the right needle thread stays in the right guides. Trim the thread on a 45-degree angle to make it easier to thread, and with the assistance of tweezers or the provided needle threading tool, you can now thread the right needle. Tuck the thread underneath out towards the back of the machine under the foot to keep it out of the way. Repeat the process for the left needle with the first spool of thread, passing this time up around the yellow dot and into the left guides. Thread the needle and tuck it behind towards the back underneath the foot. This is the last step of threading, and we're just about to get started with some overlocking. Let's close the cover and reattach our cutoff bin to keep things tidy. I have a scrap piece of fabric that I'll use to check my tensions before working on my project. After rethreading, I will also make the first couple of stitches by hand to make sure the stitches are forming nicely and nothing has gone out of place during threading. Once I can see that the stitches are forming correctly, I can press the foot pedal and begin stitching. The stitches look even and the tension looks well balanced. I just need to move the knife to the right very slightly to fill in the tiny gap between the fabric and the looper threads. Now our stitches are looking perfect. Our Bernina L450 overlocker is now completely threaded and set up to sew. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below or reach out to our team. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like and consider subscribing to our channel.